Meanwhile, for America, this is not a first. The US has mastered this art, the art of becoming guardians of human rights, torchbearers of democracy at the drop of a hat. Look at their history, and you'll find many such U-turns in favor of democracy and freedom. This is the classic Washington playbook. Be it Iraq, Libya, Syria, the US has used human rights as a stick to beat its adversaries with. This report has more.
One story, many precedents. One theme, many versions. The US rooting for human rights and democracy. Specimen number 1, Iraq. Year 2003. Target, Saddam Hussein.
In a free Iraq, there will be no more wars of aggression against your neighbors. No more poison factories. No more executions of dissidents. No more torture chambers and rape rooms. The tyrant will soon be gone. The day of your liberation is near.
How is Iraq now? A mess. A brutal government crackdown to quell violent protests. A generation of Iraqis doomed to conflict, corruption and chaos. America went to loot Iraq's oil on the pretext of liberating its people and finding weapons of mass destruction. Specimen number 2, Libya, the year 2011. Target, Muammar Gaddafi.
We knew that if we waited one more day, Benghazi, a city nearly the size of Charlotte, could suffer a massacre that would have reverberated across the region and stained the conscience of the world.
So the keepers of the world's conscience overthrew the Libyan government. The dictator Gaddafi was killed. How is Libya now? A failed democracy and a failed state. Violence, deaths and human rights abuses have risen manifold. 3,000 people have died and lakhs displaced. This is America's track record in Libya. Another failed experiment to bring democracy to an oil-rich country. Specimen number 3, Syria, the year 2012. Target, ISIS, Bashar al-Assad and oil.
What's happening in Syria is heartbreaking and outrageous, and what you've seen is the international community mobilize against the Assad regime, and it's not a question of when Assad leaves, or if Assad leaves, it's a question of when.
The US invited itself into Syria. On the pretext of fighting the Islamic State, the US backed Kurdish forces. It countered Russian and Iranian influence in the conflict. And now when the US is done milking the situation, it is leaving.
We've captured, we defeated this group largely, defeated ISIS, 100% of the caliphate, 100%. And we wanted to do 100%. I was going to do this 9 months ago, and we were not at 100%, but we were pretty close. Everyone said, can we get to 100%? Now I get to 100%, and they say, well, maybe we could stay longer. I say, well, when do we get out? There's got to be a time we get out. We have to bring our people back home.
Do you see a pattern? For the West in general and the US in particular, democracy, human rights, freedom and free will are an excuse to interfere. They beat local governments with these powerful weapons. And they do it for money, markets and oil. Syria, Libya and Iraq are all resource-rich countries. The US waged war only to ensure it controls the oil prices. So what's the moral of the story? Gaddafi has violated human rights. Saddam Hussein's Iraq was not heaven on earth. And the Assad regime in Syria has even been accused of using chemical weapons. But is the US any better? What gives it the right and authority to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries? Whenever the US talks up rights and democracy, be wary. When the US speaks for Uyghurs, it's a hedge for trade talks with China. Make no mistake, the US has nothing to gain from freedom in China. Democracy is a pretext and a tool to exercise control. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.